Welcome to another episode of the Build and Scale Boldly podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leti Alto, physician, entrepreneur, and today I'll be talking about something I think is so important for all of you out there building businesses, which is delegation. And not just delegation in your business, but also delegation in your life. And I'm going to spend some time today talking about the why, the when, the how of delegation so that you walk away from this episode with a clear vision of when you need to start delegating, why you need to start delegating, and how you can actually start delegating in your business. So with that, let's jump right in. So how many of you out there, when you think about your business, you're thinking to yourself, well, if I took some time away from my business, nothing would move forward or everything would fall apart? Well, if you're feeling that way about your business, the likelihood is that you have not delegated well in your business. And this episode is exactly for you because what we're going to be talking about is how do you actually delegate in your business so you're able to have some time away from your business and things don't fall apart and things actually move forward. And I think about a message I got really recently from one of my members of the wing. And she said, I know you've always been talking about delegation and theoretically I really understood it. But now that I actually have a team that is moving my business forward without me doing it and actually me carrying that burden, now I really understand it. So I just want to encourage all of you out here who maybe are thinking, I haven't delegated well, or my business literally would fall apart if I wasn't doing everything, that this is possible. And all you need to do is learn the skill sets and then go put this in practice. And you can be in a completely different situation as you learn to delegate in your business. Okay, so let's talk about the common pattern that a lot of us as business owners fall into. And what that pattern is being a business operator. So what happens? So as a business operator, we start up our business, we're a solopreneur, and we usually we're doing everything ourselves, right? And that's normal. That's a normal part of starting up a new business. Then what happens is we get too much work, we get stressed, and we say, okay, we have to get some help. And then we hire that wrong person, and we even realize that we've hired that wrong person. We hold on to them way too long. Then they quit on us, or maybe we even decide we're going to fire them. And then we're back to doing everything ourselves. And then we start to kind of actually fall into this pattern where we're saying to ourselves, you know what? It's easier if I just do everything myself, or no one's ever going to be able to do this as well as I can. So I should just give up. I should just do everything myself. Or, you know what? I don't have the time to be able to hire somebody and be able to delegate this well and in a way that they can do it. So it's just more efficient. I'm just going to do this myself. Or we're even saying, there's nobody out there. There's no good people out there. So again, I need to do this myself. This all comes back to is this idea that I have to do this myself. There's no one else that can help me. And a lot of us avoid delegating. And so that's really the first part I wanted to talk about is the mindset around delegation, because so much of us don't delegate. And you have to wonder what's going on behind that. Well, it may be that we have a little bit of guilt around delegation. It may be that we, again, just believe that we're the best to do the job. And so we can't see that we're going to be able to delegate successfully. Maybe we're afraid of those difficult conversations that come when you delegate and somebody maybe doesn't deliver on what they say they're going to do. But for whatever reason, we end up saying, you know what, I'm not going to delegate. So what are some of the things that we can help move ourselves forward mindset-wise to be able to delegate? Well, first of all, you have to realize that you're already delegating in life. There is none of us who is a 100% self-made person. There is a lot of delegation that has happened over your life. Maybe you had somebody who helped you be able to get into college and they helped you study, right? You delegated that job of studying. You didn't just go do it yourself with books. You actually had somebody who was hired to be able to help you study. Or maybe you have a landscaper, or maybe you have somebody who helps make some of those meals that you sometimes eat. You get prepared meal delivery service. There's a lot of delegation going on in your day-to-day life. If you're a doctor, you're delegating to nurses, to pharmacists, to lab techs. There's so many people that you're delegating to, but you may be thinking, I'm carrying all the weight myself, and it's actually just a lie that we tell ourselves. So the first thing is to notice, you know what? Nobody is a self-made person who's doing everything themselves. We have all delegated pieces of our lives. Even the clothes we wear is delegated. And so I have already delegated before, and I have delegated successfully before. The next piece is to recognize that there's actually a value to the person who's being delegated to. They're getting an opportunity to do work that they really enjoy. If you hire or you work with somebody who truly loves their job, you're actually giving them an opportunity to do more of that job that they already love. So you're actually giving them a gift. You're also giving them financial support, when you delegate. And this is an opportunity for them to be able to support their families and to be able to make some of their family's dreams come true as well. So when you do delegate to people, you're giving them opportunity as well as making your life better and making your business be able to have more impact. So it's actually a win-win. And lastly, remember that no business is able to have huge impact if you don't delegate. As a solopreneur, you have a certain limit of people's lives you can touch. If you delegate, if you build a team, you can impact so many more lives. And I think most of you are really purpose-driven entrepreneurs, really care about the businesses you're doing in the world, and you really care about impacting lives. That's why you're in it. So you need to learn to delegate, just like the leaders of Amazon, the leaders of Walmart, all of those people got to the space where they impacted the lives they were able to impact because they learned to delegate. So this is absolutely something that you must actually do to be able to have the impact that you want to have. Okay, so once we've gotten that mindset around delegation, let's talk about what actually delegation is. Well, it's the act of assigning tasks, responsibilities, or authority to another person, usually to accomplish specific goals. So delegation is you literally hand over, ideally, I would say, outcomes or responsibilities to somebody, and they're able to then deliver on an outcome for you and to move your company or move your business forward to reach its goals. So delegation, by the way, I want to mention, is just one of 3 ways that you actually can increase your capacity as a business leader. Delegation is the most probably fundamental and most important, but there is also automation. And there's also elimination, which is just getting rid of stuff that doesn't need to be done. So delegation, again, is the most important part, but I wanted you in the back of your minds to remember there are actually 3 ways to build your capacity as a business leader. And delegation is one of them, but it is the most important. Now, why would you want to delegate? Well, first of all, you want to delegate to free yourself up to do the higher value activities. As a business leader, your highest value activities are usually creating relationships, creating vision, building the machine to be able to get you to where you need to go, making those, putting in the public appearances that are necessary. Those are really the most, and creating partnerships. Those are the most important things you can do as a leader of your business. And so if you're spending your time doing things that are not the most important things, you're actually robbing the business, right? Whereas if you delegate those things, they can be done by somebody who's maybe even better than you and those things, who can do them faster, who enjoys doing them, and those can move on, and you could actually focus on those higher value activities that really only you need to do in your position. Delegation is also about offloading activities that you're not good at and that also don't give you energy. And again, if you find somebody who loves those activities, who actually is energized by doing them and are better than you, that is another reason that it's so valuable to be able to delegate, because that will get done at a higher quality, get done faster, and get done with great energy that contributes to the business's momentum. Now, for the business, delegation is important because it helps the business become more efficient. So cheaper per dollar cost for the same task is going to help your business become more and more efficient and really increase that profit margin over time. It also allows things to move forward when you're not there. And we talked very early on in this podcast about what happens when you leave your business, let's say for a couple of days. Do things continue to move forward, or do things fall apart, or they completely stall? Well, when you've delegated, things will continue to move forward in your business, and your business can continue to function and actually get better over time without you being there every single minute to do all of the different tasks. Again, for your business, the business is going to get better quality task work if you hire the right individuals into that business, and ultimately makes the business exitable, which is a really great thing for you and for the business, because it's built in such a way that it's self-sustaining and it doesn't just rely on you. So when do you delegate? Well, you delegate when you find that you're spending a lot of your time focused on lower value or repetitive tasks that can be outsourced. And so you start your business, you're doing everything, but you may find that there are tasks that you're doing over and over and over again. That's a sign that you should be delegating. And this should actually kind of trigger you in your mind to say, actually, then I probably should be delegating very early on in my business. And that's actually the case. You should be delegating very early on in your business. Most people make the mistake of not delegating until much later in their business. But if you have repetitive tasks that you have figured out a system to be able to do, and you're having to do them multiple times, that should be a sign to you that you maybe should think about delegating at that point, because the process has already been in place and there's somebody else that can do that. And it doesn't have to be you. You could be spending your time in a different way and focusing on something else. If you're finding that you're a bottleneck for things moving forward and things could be moving forward faster, that's also a sign you should be delegating. If you're finding that you don't have enough time to do CEO level work, you're not having visioning time or thinking time where you're solving problems, or you're not having the time to build the strategy or build those relationships or do the PR, if you're having any of that, that's also a sign that you need to delegate more. Maybe you have a couple employees, maybe you need to hire some independent contractors, maybe you need to hire some more employees, because ultimately you need to be doing the highest value tasks. Now, you're not going to be doing the highest value tasks necessarily 100% of the time, but the goal is at least 70 or 80% of the time that you're doing those tasks that only you can do, those higher value tasks, and spending much less time in those tasks that other people can be able to do for your company. You also may need to start delegating if you're burning out. Now, at this point, it's way too late. You should have started delegating earlier. But if you're sitting here listening to this saying, I feel exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I'm burning out, you absolutely should be delegating in your business or in your life, or maybe even both. And you've gotten to the point that it's going to affect the outcomes of your business. Let's take care of this now. Let's not continue down this road and have it get worse and have that potential worst outcome, which is where you quit your business. So remember, most people start delegating way too late. Don't be that individual. And if you heard any of that so far and you're like, oh, I should be delegating more, go make it happen. We're going to talk about how to do that in here. So where do you start delegating first? Let's say you're a relatively new business owner. Maybe you have 5 figures coming in. You're like, okay, I'm ready to start delegating. Where do you start delegating first? Well, I would consider offloading more of your life work first. And so if you're doing things like you're doing laundry, or you're doing cleaning around your house, or maybe you're running a lot of errands on the weekends, that's all space where you could have breathing space, which is really important to new ideas and creativity and strategy. And it can also be some time that you could maybe spend on your business as well. So I would think about offloading that life work first, because that is a very cheap resource to be able to go offload. Another thing you might want to do at that point is consider hiring for your business. This could be an independent contractor. It could be a full-time hire. But they're likely to be an assistant type. So like a virtual assistant that you can get from overseas, or even a virtual assistant in the US who would be slightly more expensive. Those are oftentimes going to be your first hire. And this will be somebody who can both do a lot of the business operations and the tasks that need to be happening when your business is small, but they can also offload some of your life stuff too. Calendaring, inbox, making dental appointments, all those things that really add up. This is something that individual can also do for you. So it will be a person who can help your life as well as your business if you do it well. And again, they can be a full-time hire, but they can also be an independent contractor. And if you're looking at overseas VA, it can be much less expensive than you even imagine versus getting a full-time W-2 employee in the US. So where do you go find your people when you're ready to delegate? Well, first of all, you always want to be looking for these individuals. You go get a pizza, you talk to the waitress. You're really just clearly looking and assessing who's really good at their jobs, who's really good, who has a skill set that can maybe plug into my business. And they may not plug into your business today, but they may plug into your business down the road. And so you collect phone numbers and you collect emails from all kinds of people in your day-to-day. When you're traveling, when you're at conferences, all that time you're looking for people who you may want to work with down the road, and you're building your bench. So be building your bench anywhere you go and looking out for people who are extraordinary at their job and thinking about creating that relationship, getting their email, talking to them, checking in on them every once in a while until there's a spot in the business where they're going to be fitting in. You also can go and ask word of mouth to talk to somebody who maybe knows somebody who's really good at their work. And ideally, this is a person who's not a family member, but somebody who's familiar and who has seen somebody do some work and can vouch for them and say, hey, this is a really great person who's a good fit for your business, who, who I think I have seen their work and I can vouch for them being very good. You can also look online. You can post in your social media, other online communities. There's a lot of Facebook communities with, let's say, operations leads. And there are people connecting over things like that. And then you can be in those Facebook communities and be able to post in them. You can also get a headhunter to help you find a position. Headhunters are often 25, 35% of the person's salary. And so these often happen for more like executives in your company, not necessarily just an assistant, but sometimes there are companies, actually I know of at least one, where if you're like, I really want a great executive assistant, I'm willing to spend $75,000 or $85,000 for that individual, they will help you find it. You can also do a job listing and post it online, LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter. There's a lot of different places you can post your online jobs and be able to find individuals, have them submit their resumes. And then lastly, if you want to go with a virtual assistant right out of the gate, you can actually look online jobs PH if you want to find somebody directly yourself who's a Filipino. There's a lot of companies that source VAs from all across the world, from the Middle East, South America, Philippines. And so there's a lot of different potential possibilities out there. What you need to look into is the structure of how their pricing is and whether or not you want to be managing that individual or you want somebody in between you. Those are some of the decisions that you have to make to be able to find your right fit if you decide to go VA first. And then lastly, I wanted to spend a minute to talk about, how do we source people from our company for our companies? And we do have virtual assistants and we also have W-2 full-time employees. And so for our virtual assistants, we have largely used companies to be able to source our VAs, and then we largely manage them and then we pay them directly and we oversee the quality of their work. That's kind of the decision that we've made. But again, there's no right decision with that, but you have to decide what's important to you. But right now we're in the process of actually hiring an assistant for my executive assistant, and that person is going to be more involved in the company with the other company overseeing them. So there can be a combination of this as well. And then when we want to hire somebody in the US, how are we doing it? Well, we're always building our bench. We're going to post on social media. We're going to create a job listing. We like to post on Indeed. That's where we found the most luck. We collect applications. We go through a whole interview process. Some of the things that we're looking for when we're putting our applications out there is we want to have a scorecard with what job outcomes the job will need to do. We want to collect the DISC personality, and we want to make sure they have tasks to do very early on. We want them to actually jump through a number of hoops to be able to work with us so that they show that they're really interested, they're really committed, that they really understand what they're getting into. And we want to see the quality of the work and how they think. So that's what we do. We make sure that their outcomes and the role is very clear. The results that they're going to be delivering are very specific and measurable so that they have clarity, so they have a vision of how they can be successful. We want to put the salary in our job listing, and we want it to be, above average or at the highest end of average, because we want to really encourage somebody to who has experience, who and to show that we're actually paying higher than average so we can collect the best candidates. We go through an interview process that's based off the Who book, A Method of Hiring, which is one of my favorite books by Jeff Smart, and just really gives us a lot of structure around the whole interview process and around finding the right individual. We do onboarding with individuals, and our onboarding includes results they need to deliver, outcomes they have, at 30, 60, and 90 days. And we also do assessments and reviews at those time periods, and our people have a 90-day trial. So that's how we have decided to set it up in our companies. And hopefully that gives you a model of all the things you need to think through as you're going out and you're finding this individual to fit into your company, whether they're a virtual assistant or a W-2 employee. Now, that was a lot of information that I just shared with you. If you want to go deeper into how to hire the right individuals into your team, I do have a free download for you. It's called the Less Stress and More Success Hiring System. And this is our free guide to learn how to add the right team members with greater accuracy and less effort. And so it really goes into the details of kind of the how-to of delegating and finding the right individual to delegate to in your business. And so you can find that if you go to beyara.com, so beyara.com/hiring systems, and you can get that free guide, and that will help you be able to say, how do I find those people who I need in my business once you realize you absolutely need to start delegating like yesterday. And again, remember, when you're hiring for your life, let's say you're hiring a nanny, or you're hiring a house cleaner or a housekeeper, these positions are also positions you need to take really seriously. And you want to go through this process that I just described, where you have those outcomes, where you have clarity on what success looks like. I remember very early on in my journey when I was hiring help around the home, I kind of was more lackadaisical about it. I didn't take it as seriously. I didn't do such rigorous process. And that was a mistake, because I ended up making a lot of hiring mistakes very early on in my life in these areas, whereas I was treating it so differently in my business. And that's such an interesting piece. But your life hires, I mean, if it's a nanny, it's even more important than a lot of the hires in your business. So you want to treat it seriously, and you want to go through that process of really hiring the right individual and making sure they have clarity on what the job is and that they're the right fit for the job. So we just covered a lot on delegation, and we talked about when to delegate, why to delegate, how to delegate. And I gave you these resources to kind of figure out who you want to delegate to in your business and how to find those right individuals. If this episode helped you, make sure to leave us a 5-star review, share it with a friend if you have any female entrepreneur business owners who are like, I need to get better at delegating in my business, or maybe they're just starting out and they need to learn how to delegate very early on in their business. Share this episode with them so that they don't have to make the same mistakes as many of us have, which is holding out too long, not delegating when we should have, exhausting ourselves, and putting our business in a situation that if we're not there, that it's not going to move forward, and that reduces the impact we have in the world. We don't want that for you. Thanks for joining me at the Build and Scale Boldly podcast. I will see you next time.